Kia ora koutou, ko Ruth Lemon tēnei. I'm Ruth Lemon and I'm presenting on behalf of my colleague Tamsin in terms of some work that we've done in curriculum integration. And hopefully this is a pilot study and there will be a lot more to follow. Now, I won't be doing the presentation exactly as it was done at the conference. I will be integrating some of the audience feedback that will be impacting and shaping the next revision of this paper and this project. So here we go. In terms of what I'm focusing on the idea of the curse of knowledge, right, which is a very difficult concept for teachers to work around, and it's prevalent in the literature in terms of the tertiary space, right? And so we selected a case study from a much larger data set that had been used in with a Māori-medium group of year 1 to 8 students. Very brief context, ngā marau e rua, we have 2 nationally mandated curriculum frameworks. We do have other curriculum frameworks such as the marautanga mō ngā kura kaupapa Māori or Aotearoa, right? And so those documents have their own mana. In my presentation, I am focusing on work that was done using or within a te marautanga or Aotearoa context. All right, so a Māori-medium classroom. And the questions that we were trying to answer were, how can thematic planning purposefully integrate across the curriculum areas, starting with a hangarau need or opportunity. Hangarau being the Māori-medium technology curriculum. And then after that, when we left the school sector and the case study I'm about to share, we thought about some of the ways that the initial teacher education sector can engage with this same thematic planning. All right, so the paper contains a lot more literature, but one of the key pieces of literature is Fogarty, who in 2009, and quite concisely really, came up with a series of lenses to explain the different types of curriculum integration. Okay, now initially the methodology for this project was seen to be pragmatism, and that was selected because of the bridge between objectivity and subjectivity. However, and rightly so, we got some audience feedback that possibly autoethnography could, it would function as a bridge as well into accessing the data, but it could possibly become a more eloquent way of accessing that data. So we are looking at applying autoethnography to this case study. All right, and so autoethnography being used to examine a series of teaching resources. Right, and this included plans, student artefacts, modelled and shared classroom artefacts, and the larger data set represents 25 years of teaching practice across English-medium and Māori-medium contexts with year 1 to 8 students. Right, so the entire data set was scanned for the purpose of the study, with this paper functioning as the pilot study and a way of beginning to examine the data set, right, and to introduce those initial principles of best practice. So to focus in, here's a breakdown of the key types of data that can be found throughout the dataset. Okay, if we have a look at the left column, those are your teacher-generated artefacts, your planning overviews, your rationales for classroom delivery, with the exemplar that was chosen for the pilot study. It also included things like letters to the Board of Trustees and Principal to get permission for the course of learning that was being planned, and communications with whānau, because the links to the community was another really important thing. But if you think teacher generated for the left column, and there are many different types. These are some of the key types. Student artefacts, again, here are some key types, and then modelled and shared classroom artefacts. Okay, now on to the fun bit. For this specific case study, now it was originally taught in the classroom in 2004 in a whānau makireo that consisted of the nohi nohi class, which were year 1 to 3 students, 5 to 7 year olds, and the tuakana class of of students that were 8 to 11 year olds, or year 4 to 7. Okay, there were technically any year 8s in this specific group of students, and only one year 7 student. Okay, the rest were year 1 to 6. And why did we choose something that was in 2004? I mean, surely that's 20 years ago. We chose it for its memorability. This case study, this learning was something that students wanted to talk about in 2006 when we were building up to, that was a couple of years later, when we were building up to our 10-year anniversary for the whānau. And then it was also remembered vividly by students in 2023 when we were building up to our centenary. So due to its memorability, due to the fact my contribution, I was not a trained teacher at the time. I was supporting in the classroom with a limited authority to teach, and I was going back to the class at times when I was not employed to be there because I was not wanting to miss out on any of the learning. So I'm about to play for you now the motivational introductory activity. What we did was we grabbed a couple of Hirani Melbourne songs, put them on an audio CD, made out we were listening to the radio, and then you'll hear the sound effect and then a modified voice sharing an emergency broadcast.
Tēnā koutou e te iwi, he karere oho tata tēnei, kua pāmai he rū whenua tino nui ki tāmaki makaurau. I te whitu miniti kua hipa ake nei, ko te tino papātanga o te rū whenua ki te pito o te taone o tāmaki. Kua weto kina katoa ngā hiko hiko, kua kāti, kua whati katoa ngā huarahi, ngā rōre, ka hore ngā punawai i te mahi, kua pou te hiko ki ngā waia.
Okay, so once we played this emergency broadcast, we got the students to separate into 4 groups. Now, each of these 4 groups consisted of girls and boys, junior and senior students. So we had between 5 to 11-year-olds in each group. The first group, and I've added the names in there, but the initial challenge card or kāri wero, that was given to each group laid down the technological challenge, the base challenge for the learning for the semester. Right, and the idea was a natural disasters hit the school. So group 1, ngā tangata tapu, or sacred people, needed to create and design a bedding system that would sleep 50 people. It needed to be warm, and it needed to be able to be used for our survival evening, which was what we were building up towards. It laid out some initial criteria. The students then revised that through the process of their research, but we had needed to be warm, it needed to be comfortable, needed to be using only resources available at school and natural resources, whether that be natural resources or man-made resources. And the second job of tangata tapu was to design a sanitary system, or a wharepaku for use on the night. So if we speed through the other groups, group 2, korowai ruruhau, or the sheltering cloak. Their challenge was to create and build shelter. It needed to be warm, waterproof, big enough to comfortably sleep 50 people for the night. It needed to be built at school, either down on the field or near the forest area. They ended up choosing the school pool fence, as one of the sides of the lean-to. And our third group, Te Wai Oranga, living waters, literally. I'm just giving you the literal translations of the group names that the students came up with for them by themselves. Te Wai Oranga were responsible for water catchment, filtering and purification, and coming up with a cup. What we were going to use to drink this water. Ringaropa, group 4, were given the challenge of using the permaculture garden and the forest to design a menu that would feed the 50 people for the night, and they needed to come up with a system for plates. Right, so from there, the Hangaro challenge, and we ended up having literacy was recounts where the groups were taking photos of the work that they were doing, and they were retelling their contributions to stripping the bamboo, bringing it down next to the swimming pool, how they researched and spoke with a whānau member who was an architect, so that they ran their ideas past him. I think it was at the beginning of the week, they ran their ideas past him and he gave them feedback. At the beginning of the term, it was kind of twice a week, on the Tuesday and the Thursday afternoon. But then as the students got further along, it came to once weekly with matua. Now, I mentioned the memorability of this unit, right? So you'll get some more ideas of what was covered in the curriculum from both the paper and from this video. This video was another integrated learning project in 2006, where the year 4 to 6 students at the time scripted, filmed and edited the documentary in terms of telling the story of their whānau for the last 10 years. So here are their words.
Ka mahi mātai ngā mahi tino pōrangi.
I had Roger Hart, and she was telling me how
she was really jealous of our class and how she always wanted to be in it, but she wasn't allowed. She was saying how we used to do crazy things. I wasn't here, but about the time when you guys camped in the garden recently or something.
I hear tino pai te pari kura taio.
I hear pie.
Kia pai Tamsin.
I te hanga mātai o mātai like mai kakari te pari rapahi mea. I me te pari taku.
We had to build our own house and build our toilets and stuff and make our own food.
It was scary.
Pretended we were in this natural disaster and we stayed over at school.
Tēnā koutou e te iwi, he karere oho tata tēnei, kua pāmai he rūwhenua tino nui ki tāmaki makaurau, kua weto kina katoa ngā hiko hiko, kua kāti, kua whati katoa ngā huarahi, ngā rōre, ka hore ngā punawai i te mahi, kua pou te hiko ki ngā waia, me tātari mō ngā tāngata kai whakaora ki te haere mai ki te tiki i a koe, me kohi kohi he kai, he wai, kākahu, hangaia he ruruhau, hangaia he moinga, kia noho koutou ki kōra, tainoa ki te wā ka whakapā i tētahi tangata ki a koe. Me āta whakarongo koutou ki ēnei tohu.
Tino.
Ka pai. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of the learning in the primary school context. Now, what happened when my colleague Tamsin transitioned to initial teacher education, and then I followed after her in 2015. The initial challenge that was laid before me was to coordinate the Hangarau paper. And I really wanted to, here you can see on the screen there, the learning outcomes for the course. For any course, we like to be ambitious, but I really wanted to bring some of that notion of integrated planning, because one of the challenges we find in the classroom is how do we actually fit everything in to the 5 hours a day we have. And so what I ended up doing in the second iteration of the course, first iteration I just tried to follow the course as it had been given to me. Second iteration, I got the students to sit down, we worked together, this is my writing though, we worked together to quickly brainstorm our own ideas around this. We talked a little bit about the unit. I'd shared the planning, I'd shared some of the photos and the videos that you've just been engaging with. And after they thought here about what they could teach, and you can see at the left there the huge disaster in Fiji had just happened, so that was top of mind when we were writing down things. We also thought we could incorporate visits / interviews / something with local community groups that are involved in emergency preparedness. So we added our ideas and then separated and got the students to work in groups. And this was pairs or threes, so very small groups, but got them to work in groups where they planned out different sections of this integrated learning, and then we combined it and we put it all together. And I found it very valuable. I would like to think that it could remain a regular part of the learning of these students, and hopefully what you'll see now is some of the principles of integration, initially in the primary school context and then in the tertiary context, that we are distilling from this case study and hope to refine. So we have here the idea that curriculum integration in schools needs to be meaningful and explicit. Having a point for the learning, something that you're building towards, is incredibly helpful. With composite classes, like you often have in Māori-medium settings, the pedagogical approach of tuakana teina can be a valuable one. What we did, and this was via Tamsin and myself when we were teaching the research skills, as we made sure that there was no assumption that the students already knew how to research, but there was explicit teaching, deliberate acts of teaching, where we modelled how to refine a Google search, how to note take, how to get organise our questions for when the parents, matua and whaia, were coming in to feedback and support the group's developments. Which leads nicely to the idea that whānau involvement was vital. It can become quite often, especially at primary school, a fact that the students are making something for their teacher, and that was not what we wanted to happen. So in terms of further research, it's thinking about how can we teach concepts of curriculum integration in the IT setting, and how can we develop our thinking as a professional community of practitioners. And then finally, what does best practice look like, and how does that impact on our students in the next generation? Okay, if you have any questions, he pātai rānei, then please just email through to ruth.lemon@gmail.com or ruth.lemon@tens.org.nz. Hei kona.